In the year 1904, a young woman arrived at the Bergholzli Psychiatric Hospital in Zurich, Switzerland. Her name was Sabina Spielrein, and she was just 19 years old. She entered trembling, emotionally unstable, and visibly distressed. She screamed uncontrollably. She laughed in moments of silence. She wept without reason. She feared water. She feared men. She feared herself. Physicians called it hysteria, a vague, overused diagnosis applied to women whose minds didn't fit into the clean boxes of medicine. But Carl Jung, then a 29-year-old psychiatrist with a growing reputation, saw something different in her. He didn't see madness in the traditional sense. He saw meaning, complexity, and symbolism. And instead of keeping a clinical distance, he walked directly into the emotional storm. Carl Jung was married. He had a family. He was educated, respected, and already climbing the ranks of Europe's psychiatric world. He had read Freud. He had studied deeply. But with Sabina Spielrein, his role as doctor, thinker, and healer began to blur. What started as therapy quietly transformed into something else, something ethically questionable and personally dangerous. She was not just a patient to Carl Jung. She became a mirror for his theories, a catalyst for his emotions, and a living representation of his ideas about the unconscious mind. Sabina Spielrein was not an ordinary patient. She came from a cultured, upper-class Russian Jewish family. Her father was wealthy and controlling. Her upbringing had been cold, strict, and emotionally suffocating. She had been publicly humiliated as a child, punished harshly, and developed symptoms that confused every doctor she encountered. But Sabina was not intellectually weak. She was gifted, articulate, psychologically astute, and deeply interested in language, dreams, and internal symbolism. Under Carl Jung's treatment, she began to express ideas about desire, destruction, transformation, and emotional pain with astonishing clarity. Carl Jung did not respond like a detached analyst. Instead, he listened closely. He wrote down her words. He connected them with symbols from mythology, dreams, and ancient literature. And slowly, dangerously, he began to feel something more than professional admiration. Their relationship deepened in ways that cannot be fully verified but also cannot be easily denied. Letters between Carl Jung and Freud reveal that Jung began to speak of Sabina not merely as a patient, but as the embodiment of his anima, the feminine archetype he believed lived inside every man's psyche. Instead of protecting the fragile dynamic between patient and doctor, Carl Jung crossed into the world of emotional dependence and symbolic projection. He encouraged her fantasies. He engaged in psychological intimacy. And he likely stepped into physical intimacy as well, though no confession was ever recorded. At the same time, he shared her dreams and inner life with Freud in letters. He described her desires, her fantasies, her pain, not anonymously, but with a familiarity that betrayed her privacy. Freud grew concerned. He saw what was unfolding and warned Carl Jung about the danger. Not just to Sabina, but to Jung's reputation and to psychoanalysis as a whole. Carl Jung ignored the warnings, for a time. But as the relationship intensified and Sabina's attachment deepened, the situation became unstable. She became emotional. She wrote obsessively. She threatened to reveal everything. Faced with the possibility of professional scandal, Carl Jung retreated. He pulled away from her, emotionally and professionally. And in a series of cold, self-protective moves, he cast doubt on her mental stability and questioned the legitimacy of her feelings. She was devastated. She had opened her mind and soul to the one man who claimed to understand the unconscious, only to be dismissed, pathologized, and left alone. But Sabina Spielrein was not a fragile victim. She was a survivor. After the break with Carl Jung, she continued her studies. She earned a medical degree. She trained as a psychoanalyst. And she began to write papers that were decades ahead of their time. In 1912, she published a groundbreaking essay titled Destruction as the Cause of Coming into Being. In it, she explored the idea that love is not just about union, but about annihilation. That in the deepest forms of connection, there is also fear, danger, and self-erasure. These ideas would later appear in Freud's theory of the death drive, and in the writings of Melanie Klein. But Sabina's name was rarely credited. Carl Jung never publicly acknowledged the full nature of his relationship with her. He never apologized. He never tried to restore her name in the field that both empowered and betrayed her. Privately, he admitted that Sabina had been one of the most meaningful connections of his life. He confessed that she had helped shape his understanding of the feminine soul, the anima, and the shadow. But none of that erased the damage. In 1942, in the city of Rostov-on-Don, Sabina Spielrein, along with her 2 young daughters, was executed by Nazi soldiers. Her body was dumped into a mass grave. No monument. No recognition. No justice. She died not as a psychoanalyst or pioneer, but as an anonymous Jewish woman erased by hatred, war, and silence. Her name disappeared from the textbooks. Her work was buried with her. And for decades, Carl Jung's theories flourished while her story faded into oblivion. Only in the 1970s, when her letters were rediscovered, did her story begin to resurface. Historians and scholars pieced together the truth, not from rumors, but from her own writing, her own voice, and her own pain. Carl Jung gave the world many ideas: the collective unconscious, archetypes, individuation, and shadow integration. He helped change how we understand the inner life. But his most personal failure was not theoretical. It was human. He failed to protect the one person who trusted him not only with her mind, but with her soul. And no psychological insight can undo that. As Carl Jung once said, there is no coming to consciousness without pain. But sometimes, that pain is not symbolic. Sometimes, it's real. And sometimes, it's the kind we choose to ignore.